Hi, Manna family. This coronavirus has led us to social isolation and distancing, and that can be a very lonely experience. The Bible tells us that God is always present. However, it's easy to live life without a daily awareness of God's presence. Two men who had this experience were Samson and Jacob. It's interesting that God departed from Samson and he didn't know it, and God visited Jacob and he didn't know it either. Samson had been set apart from birth to be a deliverer and a judge of Israel. He was a Nazarite, which means he took a vow not to drink alcohol or cut his hair. The Holy Spirit gave him supernatural strength to begin to deliver Israel from their enemies, the Philistines. Unfortunately, for most of his adult life, Samson misused that gift and really used it for his own lustful adventures instead of using it for the purpose God gave to him. When Delilah enticed him and he told her the secret of his strength was in his hair and she cut his hair off, it says God departed from him. Judges 16:19 says, and she made him sleep on her knees and called for a man and had him shave off the 7 locks of his hair. Then she began to afflict him and his strength left him. Then she said, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. And he awoke from his sleep and said, I will go out as at other times and shake myself free. And here's the phrase that is so haunting. But he did not know that the Lord had departed from him. Then the Philistines seized him and gouged out his eyes. Samson made the mistake of assuming that God's gift of great strength belonged to him and he could use it however he chose for his own purposes. His disobedience had so broken his relationship with God that when God left him, he didn't even know that God had departed. Interestingly enough, Jacob had the complete opposite experience. Remember that Jacob was fleeing from his brother Esau after he stole his birthright and blessing. He was on the way up north to visit his relatives. He was camping out, and God visited him in a dream. And Jacob saw Jacob's ladder with angels ascending and descending into heaven. Jacob had a dream, and he didn't know that God had visited him until he woke up. Genesis 28:15 says, God is now talking, and behold, Jacob, I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land, and I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised for you. Verse 16, then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. So it's interestingly that Samson didn't know that God had departed from him, and Jacob didn't know that God had visited him. But once Jacob understood that God had visited him, he had the right response. As soon as he understood that it was the Lord, he took up a pillar, set up a rock as a pillar, poured oil on it, made an offering, and worshiped the Lord. The right response to the presence of God is always worship and obedience. It's interesting that both Jacob and Samson did not have a constant awareness of God's presence. And the lesson for us is that our awareness of the presence of God in our lives is crucial on a day-to-day basis, especially during this time of social isolation. You know, if your spouse or a beloved child moved out of your home and you didn't discover that they were gone for 2 weeks, we would assume that that relationship was not very important to you. God is working in our lives every day, and many, many times we're not aware of his presence. Let's make our relationship with God on a moment-by-moment basis our #1 priority. Remember, God designed us to do life together.